Bom dia e obrigada por aguardarem.
Good morning, and thank you for standing by. Welcome to Méliuz webinar to discuss the results of 2021. My name is Giovanna Villari. I work in the Méliuz Folks team, and I will host this event. Our event will be held in Portuguese and translated into English simultaneously. Just select the desired language on the interpretation button located at the bottom of the screen. Again, for our non-Portuguese speakers, the audience, this event is being translated simultaneously into English. Please select the preferred language by clicking on the interpretation button, which is located at the bottom of the screen. With us here today, we have Israel Salman, founder and CEO, Luciano Vale, CFO and Investor Relations Officers, and Marcio Pena, Head of Investor Relations. Before turning the floor over to Israel, I would like to inform that this event is being recorded and is also being broadcast live on TC Station, which can be accessed through the address tc.tradersclub.com.br/station. At this point, all participants are connected in listen-only mode for Méliuz's presentation, and later we'll start the Q&A session. To ask a question, just click on raise your hand icon on Zoom. The materials presented are available for download on our website, ri.melius.com.br, in the Results Center session. Over to you, Israel. Thank you, Jojo. Good morning, everyone. Let me do what we always do here. Many people can see me, and some of you can only hear me. My name is Israel. I'm 33 years old. I'm a white man. I need to have my beard shaved. I wear glasses, and I'm at home giving this presentation to you. Well, I'm very happy to be here with you. Time has flown, but it has been very rewarding. This has been quite a journey. Our team has been growing. Our team is ever more engaged. We have been delivering everything that we have promised to our investors on the IPO, on the follow-on, and we can move on. I would like to start discussing or mentioning our new partners in the kickoff event. Last year, we brought in a video and we announced that we would have 4 people on board. We are not going to have a video now, but we have a video here that was incredible as a result. We are very happy because since we founded the company, we had never had any problems in sharing, because we understand that in order to go beyond, to go far, we need to have extraordinary people working with us, people who are owners of the business just like us and living this business as I do. And Jojo, your introduction was very nice. You should always have said that you were also a partner of Méliuz. Thank you very much for everything, Jojo. We can move on to the next slide, please. Something else which is very important that I would like to mention is that we have recommended a new member to our board. Her name is Camila. Soon we will have a general meeting to resolve on the topic, and we are very enthusiastic. 2 weeks ago, I was in Stockholm in person, where I had the honor to meet Camila and talk a lot about the global finance of feedbacks and cashback, banking in general. And I also had the honor to personally meet Sebastian, who is the CEO of Carlin. And we had very interesting conversations, and we understood that Camila could help us a lot for our next steps, especially those steps related to our financial services vertical. But not only that, Camila has been working. She was the CFO of Klarna, and she has a vision that moves from shopping and financial services, and we're very excited to start these dynamics in a more structured way with our board, which has been reinforced last year by other people, other names. And we announced Marcos Lisboa, and we also have other people that came on board to help us. The dynamics is ever more professional, I could say. I saw this business being born inside an apartment in 2012. I have been learning a lot. I have been collaborated a lot. I have been sharing my views and what is required for the growth of the business. And I believe that we are much more mature since we had our IPO and we made our promises and we delivered on them on day one. We can move on. We also promised some other things related to our products that we offer to our shareholders since the beginning. I would like to mention some of the promises we made and we delivered on them. I would like to start with the recruitment and the development of the teams. We came from about 150 people on the day of the IPO. We are reaching nearly 1,000 people if we consider the acquisition of the Bankley, which is still pending approval by the central bank. And from this acquisition and from the new hires and by forming new teams, that was our focus of last year, that we managed to come into a pace to have speed to deliver products and construct products in a very interesting manner. We came from scratch in terms of development of the app, and this new app, you can see some of its screen here. It has a complete digital account, picks trading, prepaid cards, trades of Bitcoins. Since we acquired Alter last year, this, by the way, is an incredible team that is part of our business. And we also provide services in the app. And we didn't have this service before. And we made a lot of investments so that we could have this new world, this version of financial services, in addition to other functionalities. My commitment is to open the possibilities and bring the new deliveries that we have been making. Some things that we are going to mention during the presentation, but I would also like to start mentioning on the slide. I would say that in the last 9 months, more than half of our team was focused in the news, in the new items. So most of the expenses with personnel and other investments are focused on the new, as you saw in the message I had in the press release. You can see that this may not be the shortest way. It may be the longest way, by the way, but as our team sees it, it's the way that generates more value to our shareholders in the long term. As I have always reinforced in my speech, we are going to have the results, and I am sure we are on the right track. Now, still talking about our team, we talk a lot about culture and how important culture is for us. I would like to point out that we continue to be very concerned about our culture, and we have our recruiting routines that would define 80% of the success of a team in the long term. We do all this with a lot of discipline. We bring in people who are not only technically very competent, but they who are very aligned with our culture. And this is something very hard to do, both in terms of recruitment and also to realize that we made the right choices. As I've already mentioned before, the first time that we were sure that the business had an impact was when we had the IPO. And since then, we have been delivering everything that we had promised. And now when I look at the qualified team that we have, the 150 people to nearly 1,000 people on board, I can see very clearly. I removed all the mist and I can see clearly what would be the growth cycle in the next 10 years. I'm filled with joy when I look at the maturity, the organization we have, and I'm sure that we are going to grow with discipline, bringing in all those people who are very concerned about all this. On the slide, you can see some facts and figures. I'm going to try to reinforce that the turnover continues to be very low. So that means that we are being very assertive in the recruiting process. And most of our team, Méliuz team specifically, focused on technology and product. And let me tell you, those who have been focused on the new, and here are some notes about the great place to work. And this is something that has been part of our company for years, and we look this in a very assertive manner. And there are variables that are analyzed in the program Great Places to Work, and we see how we evolved year by year. And internally, this is very valuable, and our folks team, which is our people team, work with this initiative so that we can continue improving along the time. Well, I brought in some slides for you to show our new app, our product. It's funny to say that because recently we were invited for an international conference, and I would say that this was the first time that we took part in a roadshow in person, where we could look at the people straight in the eye, talk to our future investors. We were able to show the installed app, and this is the app that we said we would construct since the acquisition of the Bankly, since we hired many people to our team. So we wanted to show this, and it was of great impact, and it was very rewarding to show the result of our work in the on the palm of our hand, as well as our card. And many users are already using it. And as our app, we believe that 100% of the rollout of this app will be completed. The new app has a merge of two worlds, as I mentioned in the message, in my message, is the Bacori, that is the union of two tribes, the shopping tribe and the banking tribe, which is represented by a complete digital account and other services, financial services that are already included in the first new version of the app. We can move on to the next slide, please. New card that I mentioned. You can remember that our previous co-branded card did not have the management conducted in our own app. So the users needed to use an app, a Méliuz app, to see the cashbacks and the shopping, and they needed to have another app of our previous partner bank to manage the credit card. And we have always believed that this was core for us, and we needed to bring in this product into our app so that we could increase the engagement of our users with the app, but also and especially be the main owners and responsible for the quality of the product and what our clients accessing on the palm of the user's hand. So we are very happy to say that all the experience is Méliuz's experience. All the problems are Méliuz's problems, and we are likely to have challenges ahead of us, but we have more agility, and because we are the owners of the production line, we believe this is so important whenever we want to build a company that can be differentiated in the long term. I mentioned this a thousand times, but bringing this home was one of the most important things that we ever done in the past few months. We can move on. And then this is the translation of what Outer became. Outer had an app and people were able to trade Bitcoin very easily with a lot of convenience. And now this is translated into this new experience inside Méliuz app, where people can trade Bitcoin from R$1 with a very simple experience. The app, by the way, is marvelous. I'm totally in love with the new design, with the logo brand. And I really believe this is the beginning of the new phase, considering everything that we have to do in the future. And everything that you saw so far related to financial services is something that we built by using the Bankly, which is the company that we acquired in May last year. Bankly is a banking as a service company, and even though it's still pending in terms of approval from the central bank, we are clients of the Bankly anyway, and more than 170 clients serviced by Bankly. And it will provide high-level technology, super modular services, so that we can build solutions, so that our team can build solutions for the Méliuz users in the best possible way. In addition, it has all the permits, all the licenses that are required, so that we can not avoid investing so much. So we are not going to need to have more permits. So the cost of capital is going to be lower along the time. Everything that we built, the digital account, the credit card, and all the investments that in crypto made by Alter were made by using Bankly technology, and it's available to Méliuz and to the more than 170 clients that is owned by the company. So we have the number of functionalities, and we consider Bankly to be a diamond that we have, and we're just in the beginning. We still have a lot of room to grow, and we also admire Amazon as a company. We see Bankly as an analogy of what WS would be to Amazon and to other partners. We could use the technology and the infrastructure of Bankly only as a partner with a certain cost, but we understand that this is a very important business for the future, not only for the line of cost, but also for in relation to the line of revenues, because Méliuz services will also be provided to other partners. We believe that this combination is very powerful. We are going to continue investing in Bankly in the future, and we are totally in love with the company and the product. And providing a little bit more visibility of Méliuz products that were remodeled in the new app in terms of design, and lots of improvement can still be made considering the constant effort of our teams. So we brought in some numbers, the numbers of active users that use Invoice, more than 680,000. We are very happy with the acceptance of the product. We believe that there are still some monetization related challenges ahead of us, but I see them as opportunities. And now that I see that we have this complete team, dedicated team, a head specialized in the area, and a team focused on improving this product, I believe that our monetization challenges are going to be lessened. So we are very happy that we have this team focused on this, and the data you can see on screen shows how enthusiastic we are in relation to this business and shopping. And lastly, before I move on to next speaker, we are going to talk about international shopping that is under a PICO-D brand. I would like to mention the number of accounts that we managed to open so far, considering the launch of the cashback tool in nine countries already. But we also understand there are many challenges ahead of us from the viewpoint of products. For example, we still haven't completed the rollout of the app into those countries. So some users, some Android users have access to the international app, and iOS still needs to be reached. And we see those numbers as an opportunity. We have already opened 200,000 accounts, new accounts, even though the app is not perfect as we see perfection. So I believe that we see a lot of opportunities. There are many low-hanging fruits for PICO-D, but the team continues to be very engaged, both the Polish people, the executives who run the business, and our team as well that accompany the operation on an everyday basis. Now I will turn the floor over to Luciano so that he can continue the presentation. Thank you very much. Thank you, Sael. Good morning, everyone. And thank you very much for attending our conference. Before anything, let me introduce myself. My name is Luciano Valle. I'm 45. I'm a white man. I do not wear glasses. Uh, I'm wearing a dark blue shirt. Talking about our figures, operational and financial numbers, here's the highlight related to our performance in terms of client base. So 2021, we managed to have an expansion of this base, a high level of engagement reflected in the numbers that you can see with a growth of 60% when we look year on year, and the same level of growth that we have been observing in the past 2 years in terms of total accounts. And now looking at the quality of the growth, we can also see a very strong pace of growth of active users that nearly double every year in the past 2 years. And in this regard, it's important to point out the quality of the effort we have been making when we look at the number of buyers, new buyers or total buyers that we have inside Méliuz. And it's important to draw your attention to the level of potential that we have to generate sales to our partners. Speaking of numbers, we saw a growth of more than 120% when we compare the fourth quarter of 21 to against the fourth quarter of 2020. And when we look year on year, it's more than 165%. And when compared the quarters, we can see the growth of nearly 100% when we compare 2020 and 2021. And not only that, it's important to mention that in addition to grow our base, we have also been maintaining the level of engagement, the level of adhesion of our users with our platform. So we have been managing to build an ecosystem where users trust Méliuz to purchase ever more every year. And added to all of this, as a consequence, we reached in the last quarter the best GMV of our history, year on year or a quarter on quarter, showing the power to contribute to generate sales to our partners by means of our shopping platform. And here, bringing some highlights of the numbers that we have already disclosed. We had a growth of 76% in the fourth quarter 20 against the fourth quarter 2021, considering only GMV Méliuz. And we are also talking about a growth of 77% considering 2020 and 2021. As for shopping, in the consolidated terms, we had a growth of 113% in the fourth quarter 21 against the fourth quarter 20, and 117% year on year. This is when we reached 5.5 billion of GMV generated for our partners. And considering this context, this is a very important slide, by the way, because it reinforces our strategy along 2021, which was to seek higher engagement of our base, higher growth of our base. So the measures that we made were in this direction. We can notice that the behavior of net take rate that accompanied the GMV growth along the quarters. And when we look of what we see as a result for the first quarter of this year, we see the recovery of this volume, the original volume of GMV, with an improvement in our take rate for getting closer to the historical base that we used to have. So because we managed to go back to the net take rate as a sustainable level, together with a growth of nearly 6% year on year, proves that our strategy to focus on bring in more users and engage them with our products is on the right track now with the numbers of the first quarter. It's important to mention, can you go back? All this movement has been done in a much more competitive environment where we can see the maintenance of the behavior that we saw in the previous slide of our cohorts. So the quality of what we have been able to offer in terms of event generation to our partners together with the more competitive market reinforces that was a very assertive strategy considering the figures we are showing you. And part of the strategy is reflected on the results that we present on the slide in relation to our net revenue. We more than doubled our net revenue along 2021. That was driven by this strategy of expanding our actions in shopping, growing our user bases and the origination of sales to our partners. Talking about the numbers of the fourth quarter, we reached 99 million in the net revenue, a growth of nearly 130% when compared to the same period of last year. Considering the accumulated numbers, we reached 264 billion as revenue. We more than doubled in relation to 2020. And it's important to see that the rhythm of growth in comparison to the previous year, we can see the increase in CAGR of 80%. The dynamic that we observed was influenced by two factors. First, we were observing in the end of the third quarter, we had more aggressive campaigns when we were getting ready to a stronger period, which is the fourth quarter, especially because of the Black Friday. And part of the revenue that's originated at the end of the third quarter is captured in the result that we presented in the fourth quarter. And considering the effect that we had to dilute these results because of the Black Friday, as we mentioned before, we had an effect that part of this revenue has already been impacted on the fourth quarter. It's important to mention that we had two factors that contributed to this accelerated growth in the fourth quarter, and obviously it has some impacts related to the revenue that we expect for the first quarter. When we consider both combined and the cashback that is included in this revenue, as I'm going to mention in more detail next slide, we are discussing one of the best performances that we've ever had at Méliuz. So it's important to show you and explain the dynamics and what to expect for the next quarter of 2022. Talking about the impact that is based on what was commented by Israel. In 2021, we focused on expanding the new fronts to generate the sources for the company, both the investments made by the team or investments that we have been making with M&A. And all this and the path that we want to follow in the future is to generate more value to our shareholders and to Méliuz as a whole. It's important to point out that part of what we observed in terms of marketing expenses was included in the context where we were looking for a higher engagement and more growth in the base. And this is something that we have already been normalized in the first quarter of 2022, since we are focusing more on the retention and the cross-sell that we are going to have for our products in the future. So it's important to mention that this expense with personnel is part of the construction of the team and is going to be just specific along the next quarters. And lastly, before we talk about the perspectives and what we expect for the short and medium term, this is a pro forma consolidation of our net revenues, as we have always done. When we consider even the acquisition of the Bentley, we have a total revenue of the consolidated group of more than 343 million, a growth of more than 70%, 170%, and a CAGR for the last 2 years of more than 100%. We more than doubled the revenue year on year. And talking about our vision for next quarters, and here we have a very strong focus on what we can already share with you. It's important to mention that we are going to focus on the rollout of the new app. We are going to try to make available the new features that we mentioned in this presentation to 100% of the user base. And then we want to continue our GMV As we mentioned, the first quarter of 2022, we want to maintain healthy margins to make this business sustainable, so that we are going to continue being relevant in this incremental sales for our partners. As a third part is a change of mindset, and considering the portfolio that has been increasing in terms of product and services, we are then going to focusing on our bases. We are going to fish inside our own aquarium, and so that can focus more on the cross-sell, and we are going to de-accelerate the effort in marketing to acquire new users. And this is something that we can see the normalization in this first quarter 22. And also considering our company and the environment, it's important to say that we are going to maintain our discipline when allocating the capital to preserve the liquidity of our operation, and to work and look at investments and the new hires in a very specific manner, so that we can continue on the path that we decided to follow, that we believe is fantastic. And we see that we are very well prepared to face all the challenge that we have ahead of us. So this is my part. I would like to thank you for your attention, and we are going to open the Q&A session now. Thank you. Thank you, everyone. We are now going to start the Q&A session. To ask a question, click on the raise your hand button for your microphone to be enabled. The first question comes from Mr. Ricardo Butchpigel. If I didn't mention your surname correctly, let me know. From BTG Pactual. You may proceed, sir. Good morning, everyone. That's correct. You pronounced my last name correctly. Congratulations on the result. I have two questions on my side. First, I would like to understand how can we see the monetization path for Méliuz in the future years, and does it make sense to think of EBITDA going back to the positive levels that were delivered before the IPO? I would also like to understand the funding structure that Méliuz wants to use for the credit card system, and if this what's going to be a risk involved before a track record is formed, or if you're going to start transferring 100% of the risk. Thank you. Okay, you can answer the first point. Thank you very much for your question. Speaking of monetization, especially considering what we have just mentioned, to go back to the net take rate, which to the levels that we observed before the fourth quarter, it shows that monetization is clear in our heads, and we know we have it very clear what to do. The biggest point, so that I can give you a precise answer, that is when are we going to have a positive margin of EBITDA, will depend on our execution of everything that we have been doing and how the products will play out along the time. So this is very clear in the shopping. We have a business which is very well controlled. We have our hands on the steering wheel with the margin and the growth of GMV as we have presented. When we mention the other business lines, especially financial services, we also have clear that we have different monetization lines. Credit card, for example, we do not have just one line of credit. We have a higher capture of interchange according to the volume that we are going to trade using this card. We are going to start receiving revenues from other rates or fees that we didn't have before, so we can go deeper than that. So we have also the Bitcoin trading margin and other products that we are going to use for the rollout for the future months. And answer your second question, the funding for the credit card operation or anything related to credit, we are always going to be very conservative at all times. Why? Because we have we have more credit. There's a lot of pressure on credit because of the lower purchasing power and the higher inflation. And so as a result, we see there's not a lot of room for indebtedness from the consumers. So we want to follow a playbook when we're going to do it as safely as possible so that we can prove the quality of our policies, and then we're going to scale it. We are not in a hurry to grow. Second, consider we are not in a hurry and we are not talking about high volumes in terms of capital allocation. We are going to be smarter when we allocate our own capital in relation to the cost that we have today to access the funding to this product. So we are going to start small, and we are also looking at new opportunities, new alternatives, so that we can have lower cost of capital along the operation. But what is important, there's absolutely no pressure, no need or wish to accelerate in this line. We are very cautious, as I mentioned on the last slide. We are going to be very cautious when we allocate the capital so that we can optimize the resources as much as we can as we develop the new fronts. It was very clear, Luciano. Thank you very much. Our next question comes from Fred Mendes with Bank of America. You may proceed, sir. Good morning, everyone. Thank you very much for the call. I have two questions on my side. The first is a more strategic, and I'm going to try to be less technical. You have two possibilities to update the app or launch a new app. I would like to understand the benefits that you see when you launch a new app, and what are the metrics you're going to look in 2022 so that you can track whether or not you're going to be successful in this new app. And another point, the Bankly. It's something new for us. You mentioned something about this in the presentation. Could you provide some more color on this? What's the phase, what kind of client Bankly has, and which direction you want to take? I can understand it's a big opportunity you have, but I would like to understand a little better. Okay, thank you for the question, Freddie. Okay, I'm going to go over all the questions. Why to start from scratch? The previous app was a app that had been using for some years and had a lot to grow in different aspects in terms of technology, of infrastructure, and especially to have the new businesses included and being built and included all at the same time. So we planned from scratch something new, a new structure where we could have the control and we could understand all the details of each part of that whole infrastructure. And more interesting is that all business units, all developers, all product managers participated in the whole process. So they are not piloting a new car to them, which would be the previous app. They are driving the car they helped to build, and they were the ones who helped to make the adjustments until the rollout came. So in terms of scalability, in terms of onboarding new people working on those projects, we now have much more control because we know every little detail of this new app. In addition, it was built in such a way, Fred, that when we prioritized security as the most important point. And we are now going to include deeper financial services, and we needed to look at it more carefully as different from what we did in the past when we only had the shopping vertical. So we used the know-how of the product managers, the new engineers that came from other financial institutions, and we made the best possible product for this new Méliuz phase. We did not even consider using the previous app for this new phase. It's about that. Success metrics. Internally, I don't know how we are going to do in the next calls, if you're going to bring in more details, but at present we have a mother target that we refer to as app every day. Our success using the app is going to be measured by the increase in the number of days inside a month that our user would interact with our app. So we are very enthusiastic, at least considering the preliminary figures of the bases that are already using the new app. We are moving from a place in the past where users, you can remember very well during the IPO, we mentioned this. At that time, they would purchase 7 times. They would have a little bit more than 7 directions per year. And now we are want to interact with the user every day. So this is something really transformational, what we have built along the past months. It's important to point out that engagement and interaction with the app is always associated with monetization. For us, one thing always is always together with the other one. When we say the user will use the app every day, they will use a product that will be monetized behind. We are not going to shoot and then to see where the bullet is going. We are running after the bullet since the first day. So we are walking hand in hand. We like to have our hands on the steering wheel. So we have monetization and every day on the app going hand in hand. And talking about Bankly, Bankly can provide services to different companies. We understand, Freddie, that every company needs somehow at a certain level financial services, but not necessarily a bank. And this is what Bankly offers. To some companies, we offer the prepaid card issue for delivery services. For example, when a person will purchase groceries from the supermarket, we also offer functionalities and APIs for companies, acquiring companies. We deliver services to different companies at different levels. So on our side, Fred, our commitment after the central bank approves this initiative, we are going to continue investing in technology and providing services to the client, who is going to be our partner. Because why? We need to have modular, scalable technology so that we can meet the needs of any partner. If this comes from a full banking solution used by Méliuz, or a solution that would require an API for Pix. So technology is core for us, and we're going to continue investing in this. And on the other side is related to services. This Bankly spirit that we have already identified as we acquired, and that is connected to Méliuz clients for life. So we are going to be very effective in providing services, solving problems that will happen along the way, and we are going to we will try to continue delivering the best experience, both in terms of service as technology. I don't know if I answered your question. No, it's perfect, Israel. Thank you very much.
A próxima pergunta
Our
é da
next question comes from Mr. Otávio Tanganelli with Bradesco. You may proceed, sir. Thank you for the opportunity. I would like to ask a question related to Camila coming on board. How do you see as an opportunity? I can see that many things have already been done out of Brazil. I would like to understand how you see all this, how you intend to replicate this in Brazil, and how you're going to fit this product into Méliuz ecosystem so that you can enhance the engagement and monetization. Excellent question, Otávio. Thank you. Méliuz came about with a mission which has not changed so far. What's the mission? We were created to help our partners, our brand partners to sell more. So we build solutions to make this visible so that we can help our partners to make more sales. And on the other hand, we empower our consumers with coupons, cashback, credit card, account, and other financial services. We understand that this combo of empowering users and build solutions to generate more sales is the right track for us to continue building a very high level engagement company that generate values to the partners and consumers. And as for Buy Now Pay Later, specifically, we're looking at the solution in a very flexible manner. Some people say, oh, this has to do with paying installments. We already had the slip of payment, the boleto, to pay. And we cannot be very simplistic when we do the analysis. Otherwise, we are going to miss important opportunities that could change markets in the medium or long terms. And at the Méliuz, as always, you can see how Méliuz transformed in the past year. It's a completely different company. If we consider last year, we do not believe that we know everything, and we don't not jump into conclusions before we actually understand what's happening in the world and how things are going to be changed in terms of use of financial services and checkout. And this is the main message. Camila's onboarding will accelerate this testing, this open-minded way of looking at the business. She has been in different markets and she has a lot to contribute, even though we understand that the Brazilian market has some specificities. I can't wait to have her on board. Thank you very much. Our next question comes from William Baliachardi with Itaú. William, you may proceed. We can't hear you.
Vocês conseguem me ouvir agora, pessoal?
Can you hear me now?
Boa.
Now
Tá,
we can.
obrigado. Bom
Thank
dia,
you.
pessoal. Obrigado pela
Good
oportunidade de
morning.
perguntar, né?
Thank you very
Aqui
much
acho
for
que
the
continuando
opportunity
um
of
pouco
asking
a
a
pergunta do
question.
Fred sobre
And now
Bankley, né?
related to
Se
questions,
vocês puderem abrir, né? A gente
Freddy's
queria
question
entender quais
related
foram
to
os drivers
banking.
de crescimento
Could
do
you tell
Bankley em
us what
21,
were
né?
the growth drivers
Quais
of
os serviços e
Bankley in
produtos que estão performando
2021?
bem.
What were
E
the
aí, para
services and
2022,
products
né?
whose performance
Qual
is
que
good?
vocês acham que
And
deve se
as for
destacar, né? Se
2022,
tem
which
algum
one do
mix
you think
diferente de
will have a
produtos para frente que
highlight?
deva se
Do you have
destacar,
any mix of
né?
products that
E aí
will
também sobre
become more
Bankley, né? Se
important?
essa
And
nova
also in
regulação do
relation
Banco
to
Central sobre
Bankley,
IPs, né? Deve
do you believe
afetar a
that the
empresa de
new
alguma forma, tá?
regulation by the
Do nosso
central
lado é
bank
isso.
will
Obrigado.
affect the company in any way? Can I answer the first part of the question, and then Luciana will answer the second part? But it's always good to have this information. We are very excited about the approval. At the same time, we understand that it would be interesting to bring some visibility to you and explain what this business is. So we just limit ourselves to share our numbers. We are not going to get into details into the operation because there's no one better than the creators of Bankley to discuss the topic on a timely basis, which will be the time when everything has been approved in terms of LACEN's approval. My perception is the following as I see it. The demand for the product, whichever the API or whichever service provided by Bankley, is very high. We see many companies, technology companies or not, we see that there's a high demand for that product or solutions because we did not have modular solutions that would be easily integrated. And this is something new when we mentioned banking as a service. And there were not companies that would provide the service with a high quality in the services that were provided. So we see that there's a lot of opportunities in the market, and we need to apply a filter, a very stringent filter, so that we are not going to hurry, or we're not going to be too fast in bringing people on board. In other words, we see that demand is very high. We believe the business will continue growing, but I would like you to be a little patient before I give more visibility. William, in relation to your second question, first, I think it's important to mention that we see this is natural movement by the central bank so that they can be more cautious. We can see that we are categorized as something simpler, not as a financial conglomerate whose capital would be higher. Still talking about what Israel mentioned, considering the construction of new features and the obtaining new permits, we make adaptations to do the regulations, and we are monitoring all this, but this, we do not believe that this is going to
Boa,
have a
pessoal,
higher
obrigado.
impact
Luciano
on the
Israel.
company or on the product. Thank you very much.
Próxima pergunta
We have
é
another
de
question
Andrew Rubin, do
from
Morgan
Andrew
Stanley.
Ruben with Morgan
Andrew,
Stanley.
pode perguntar.
Andrew, yes, go ahead.
Hi, thanks very much for the question. On the strategy for Picote, how much of the Brazil investment around the new app and financial services, how much of that can be leveraged in your international operations? And related, how do you think about the balance between new users versus existing user frequency in the Picote base? Thank you.
Thank you, Andrew, for your question. 100%. 100% of the things that we're developing to Brazil may be applied to our international operation as we see convenient. In the short term, this is not what's happening. So what we prefer to do is to focus our team that is building the new app to do the rollout in Brazil, to prepare the new app for the Brazil base. And while the developers team of Picote in Poland has a different agenda for the development. So this is an efficiency that we decided to have to adopt to. It's an option and not to capture in the short term, because we believe that we would lose speed in the international plane. So we move separately at the moment, but we have already planned that in the short while. I cannot give you precise numbers so that we are not going to create any expectations, but in the future we'll have the merge of the applications, everything that we developed here very carefully, as I mentioned, as I answered to Freddie, and everything that we developed would be used at the international level. I even mentioned security when I gave an answer to Freddie, and the new app was built multi-language and multi-currency, looking at the future merge of the applications Brazil and international at a certain time in the future. The second question, Luciano. You have the frequency of the new users. Okay, thank you. It's good to remember that Picote did not have a user base. And this is the main point and the reason that made us so excited to acquire it. Picote, in fact, had a traffic, a constant qualified traffic that we refer to as organic because it's cheap, that reached their app without paying for the announcements. They had this qualified traffic, but it was not translated into users. We didn't know who they were. They didn't need to register in the Picote platform to have the promotions and discount and everything else. And we only started registering the people and understand who the people were and communicate with them when we rolled out the cashback tools in the 9 countries. So the 200,000 people that we now know who they are those who we can measure their recurrence, their monthly spending, because it's the first time we know who they are. And how have we gone about it? We have analyzed the numbers Brazil. visitors, registrations, buyers, people who refer friends. We compare those metrics with the metrics per country at Picodi, and then based on this we make adjustments to the product, both related to the launch of the app, adjustments made on the south or the browser extension. So this is how we are going about it. I don't know if it was clear, but we started having visibility of the people after the acquisition.
Very clear, very helpful. Thank you.
Our next question comes from Murilo Breder with Nubank. Murilo, you may proceed. Hello, everyone. Thank you very much for the call. I have two questions. In fact, they are kind of related because you had an expansion of important employees along the way, and this was reflected in personnel expenses. And as you said, it's likely to go down along the quarters. Did you manage to complete the team the way you wanted, or are there functions to be filled in 2022? Or do you think this personnel expenses are going to be decreased in the future? And the other questions related to intensity. You talked about the rollout of the base with the new app. I don't know in terms of percentage, but I would like to know the intensity. What's the intensity you want to have in 2022? You want to be slower, or can we expect something more intensive in the beginning of the year, or is it going to be spaced during the year? Thank you, Murilo, for your question. First, in relation to the intensity of people. Let's talk about the concepts. What is going to be reduced is the speed of growth, not the absolute values, because those people are part of the team and they're all engaged, just to make it clear to everyone. The base, the main heads, the main directors of business units are already with us. And the engineers that we wanted to have with us to participate in the next steps, I would say that most of them are with us. We have an internal budget to bring in other people in a specific way, one-off, but we are much more concerned in the performing and delivering the product. And this is also related to the second part of your question, that is about the rollout. I believe that we are going to be calm at all times. When you change a product from zero, from the scratch, risks are involved. We may make mistakes in tool, in flow. We may change the conversion rate to some buyers, and this is not what we want. But so we do that very carefully, looking at all the details, look at all the data, and we check and double check, and to provide you more visibility about the terms or periods. We have a base which is already considered to be relevant, and we believe that up to the end of April, we are going to have 100% of the base inside the app. This is the expectation I have. The base is very large, especially of Android using the new app. We are very enthusiastic to complete this in the short term. Our next question comes from Caio Prado with UBS. Caio, you may proceed. Good morning, everyone. Thank you very much for the opportunity of asking question. Good morning, Israel and team. In this call, you mentioned the ads revenues. So along these lines, I would like to know if you could provide more details about the increase in the revenue. If these are related to minor clients that would like to have more highlight or more be prioritized on our platform, or is this related to the industry? And what can we expect in relation to Méliuz app? Thank you, Caio. It's a very good question, but in spite of the fact that we see small and medium-sized players, and these are the ones that grow the fastest, the major partners are the major users of Méliuz ads, both in terms of buying communication that we have with the base and also to buy spaces, premium spaces inside the app, on the site. We believe that this is just beginning. We have a lot to grow in terms of algorithm to optimize who would come up and to which clients the ads are going to be appeared. And we have the marketing team trust. We have the trust that allows us to work on this avenue of ads, so as to say, with a lot of assertiveness. I hope I can bring in more details in the next call. It was the first time that we gave a name to this business. And I believe that our data team, our data engineering team has a lot of things to use all the data that we have to generate more value and convert all this into sales to our partners. We are very excited, very enthusiastic, and in the next quarters, we are going to bring in more details for you. Okay, perfect. Thank you, everyone. We close the Q&A session. I would like to turn the call back to Israel for his final remarks. Okay, thank you, Jojo. I would like to thank you all. I can see that there are many people attending the call. My final remark would be that we had never been in a more privileged position in terms of cash, capital to be allocated, and also in terms of maturity to allocate the capital, considering the management that we formed, our board as well. And I have to mention that we had never had such a qualified team as we have today, both in numbers of people working different verticals and the number of and the level of culture that we made a point when we brought those people on board. So we completed the first phase of Méliuz, as we have insisted since the IPO and also on the follow-on. And every time I talk to analysts and investors, we delivered on our promise. We are prepared for the next phase. I would like to point out that Méliuz came this far knowing how to use the capital well in a smart way. With total control, we understand the value of the capital, especially at this time, considering the macroeconomics that we see today. And this is something we're not going to lose. Count on our team. We are going to continue maintaining what made us come this far, which is our capacity to do a lot using little. We are to continue like this. It's a lot of joy we have with our new team, the new partners, and we are looking forward to the new quarters, and we are very enthusiastic and excited. And I would like to thank you all for attending the conference. Excuse me. Méliuz 2021 results webinar is closed. Thank you for participating and see you next time.